Sorry, Snoopy. You can't go with us. Dogs aren't allowed on the school bus. Woof.
Hello, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. This week, I wanted to make some art and express how relaxed this process actually is. Now let's get started. Art is really easy for me. I never struggle with anything, and I just come up with ideas on the spot. Wait, that's not true. No, but I wish it was. The truth is I spend hours planning a piece. But let's talk about everything that actually goes into the making of a painting. This is the book I'm going to be working in today. You may remember this book from my painting the cover of my sketchbook video, where I said I wanted to do more paintings in this book, but I literally have done nothing in this book since then. I have definitely been dealing with artist block for some time now, but I think it has become even more of an issue since quarantine. Since I've been struggling with making art lately, I decided to change my approach. The first thing I did was come up with a list of themes for each page that I feel like would get me started. I'm not doing any of these themes in order, and I also need to add more, but this is just what I have so far. So the theme I picked for this page was future. Now, I'm not planning too far in the future, just a few years from now. Before I start any project, I always begin with references. I decided to photograph myself wearing nice clothes because although I have no idea what job I want in the future, I feel like this gives the idea that I've somehow made something of myself. I also wanted to depict myself holding a wiener dog because I think it would be nice to have a dog one day. The issue with this is since I don't have a dachshund already, I have to improvise. Cue me looking absolutely depressed holding this pillow. I didn't feel like this was working because the pillow was too big. This bottle of ouzo actually serves as the perfect size and weight for what I wanted. I'm aware of how hilarious this looks, but hey, anything for the shot, right? I always check my photo after every picture I take to see what needs to be changed. Originally I had my hair up because I thought maybe it would give the impression that I was a bit older. But after taking a few photos, I really didn't like the way that this looked, so I decided to leave it down. I try to make my reference photos as close as I can to what I want to paint. Taking reference photos usually takes me a while because it comes down to a lot of trial and error. Sometimes you don't know what's actually going to work as a reference photo until you start drawing. For anything I can't take a picture of myself, I look online for images. Once I find something I'm happy with, it's time to start preparing the surface. This is gesso. It seals the surface of my paper before I apply my paint. I usually do 2 to 3 coats of this. Once the gesso is dry, it's time to begin drawing. I usually have a rough idea in my head of how I want the composition to look. During this stage, I try to put all my references together and see how everything works. If it's not working out how I hoped, then I go back and take more photos until it's right. Luckily for me, everything worked out and I was happy with the composition. So my idea for this painting was to have myself holding my dog while being surrounded by paintings and plants. I'm doing this because in this future version of myself, I hope to have improved on my artistic skills while also continuing to make a lot more artwork. I would also love to one day actually be able to keep plants alive. I have a few right now, but in the future it would be nice to have a few more. In a perfect world, I would love to travel, but I don't know when I would actually feel safe enough to do that, and these days I try to keep my wants simple. Now it's time to move on to painting. This is the longest part in the process for me and ultimately proves if I planned out everything correctly. When I first came up with the idea to make this painting, I imagined the background a very specific shade of green. I didn't quite get the exact shade I wanted, but I felt like this was close enough. I'm trying to cover as much area as I can. I like doing this because I feel like if I need to change something, I can do it early on instead of later in the painting when I've already rendered something. I try to define where the light and dark areas are going to be. Then I put in my middle tones to start bringing everything together. The more I started to paint, the more I realized I needed to make some changes. The head needed to be bigger, which pushed everything else down. Whenever I first start a painting, I find it always goes through this ugly stage when I'm trying to figure everything out. I'm actually oddly embarrassed about it, even though I know I have no reason to be. Eventually, the more I work though, I usually end up saving it. I did an outline of myself in red paint, and I actually really ended up liking how the red looked against the blue of my shirt, so I kept it in instead of covering it up. I think it's easy to see when an artist enjoyed making the work and when they didn't, so I always try to keep this in mind when I'm painting. When I'm painting areas that can easily be boring, I try to keep things interesting by keeping the brushstrokes dynamic. So instead of just looking at a rushed, flat square, your eye can bounce around the area. At first, I wasn't sure what to do for the paintings on the wall, which is why I left them last. I ultimately ended up deciding to paint vague scenes. I'm actually pretty happy with how this turned out. It's pretty difficult for me to draw or paint from my head, so even when I make up the most basic things, I'm pretty proud of myself. Throughout the process of taking reference photos and thinking about my ideas, I'm always asking myself if the idea will sustain my interest throughout the whole time I'm painting it. Otherwise, I know myself, and when I'm not interested in making something, I have a lot of difficulty finishing it. Whenever I'm painting something, I always try to take the background color and work it into my subject. If I don't do this, I feel like the subject and the background look disconnected. To me, it looks like I took two reference photos and didn't bother linking them together, so I try to always do this step to ensure the picture looks cohesive. I decided to add a bit more red in places that were blank, just to fill it in and to define the silhouette more. This painting is pretty different from anything I would normally make, but I'm happy with the results. Alright, and that's going to be the end of this video. If you like this video, then give it a like. If you want to subscribe, then subscribe. I put out new videos every Monday, and I will see you guys next week with, I don't know what yet, but I will see you guys next week. Bye.